Hello friends and welcome back to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. My name is Deepa Robbins from DeeZinesByD and today I have a post featuring some Avery Elle products. More specifically, the Happy Hogs stamps and die set. This set was such a joy to work with because these little pigs are so cute and fun to color in, and you really don't need that many different colors of Copics to do it. Now, this is a stamp set I'm using today. This is the Happy Hog stamp set, and as you can see, it has a bunch of cool little images. You have 4 little pigs that you can use, along with a bunch of little butterflies and flowers and a mud puddle along with smaller mud puddles. And then I also have the coordinating dies, which cut everything out there except for the sentiments. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a white piece of cardstock. So what I like to do here is to reach into my scraps. So that's why I've got this weirdly oblong piece of cardstock here. It's probably the end of a card base, and I've cut it off to use for stamping here. I'm going to take all of these little pieces. I'm only going to use 3 pigs today, and I'm going to use all of the little butterflies and flowers along with that mud puddle, and I'm actually going to stamp out a couple of the flowers and the mud puddle twice. I'm using some Memento Tuxedo Black ink because this is great ink to use for Copic coloring. It is alcohol marker safe. And I'm actually going to stamp these out a couple times. I missed a little spot there, and I also like the double stamp because it just gives a crisper, neater line, and that's partly why I use the MISTI for double stamping. So now I'm going to take you through the coloring. I'm using a bunch of Copic chows. You can use whatever markers you have on hand, or you could use a Copic sketch. I know a lot of people have those. I'm going to be listing all the colors that I'm using to color in these pieces in the top left corner so that it's easy to follow and kind of use the same kind of colors to get the same sort of look if you were looking to do that. Now I'm using more of a peachy color on the pigs, and then at the end, after I do the 2 darker colors, I'm going to use like a pinkish color, which would be the RV10, and then after that I'll be using a 0 colorless blender just to blend all those colors nicely together and sort of blend it into a little bit of a white so that it has some highlights. And I haven't listed it here, but for the little hooves on the pig, I did initially just use EO2 and R20, but in the end I decided I wanted it to have more of a darker look, so I added some E33, which is also one of the colors that I'm going to be using on the mud puddles. So I basically used the same technique to color in all 3 pigs, and the reason why I chose 3 pigs is because I'm going to be spotlighting the 3 pigs on the center of my card, and I just didn't have room for a 4th one, so there was no need for me to stamp out the 4th one, but if you wanted to maybe change up the look of your card and use a different pig in the mix, you could do that. Now, I know I keep saying pigs. I should probably say hogs since this is the Happy Hog set, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep coloring this in. So for the mud puddles, I used 3 colors, E35, E33, and E00. And you'll notice I'm coloring this in with less of a smooth look like most Copic coloring has, and I'm going to kind of make it a little more choppy and jagged because I wanted to have just a little bit of a textured look like mud has. It's not always just smooth and clear, right? So for these little mud puddles, I did color them in once with the 3 colors, and then I decided to go back over it because I think the lightest color kind of blended everything out a little too much. So I went back and added a 2nd layer of color, and then I thought I need to put some mud on these pigs since they're going to be jumping around and rolling in the mud. I took that E33 marker and I went back and I kind of just added some droplets and bits of mud on the bottom of the pigs or the hogs' hooves and on the bellies and the backs. Maybe I added like a little bit on the face on one of them, and there's just like little bits of mud just to make it look a little bit more realistic, like they're jumping around in the mud. And that's the final look with the mud. Now I'm going to go ahead and color in the butterflies and the little flowers. And for this, I decided to keep just a light look. I used a lighter pink, which was RV21, and a pretty light bluey purple, which is BV00. And my technique for coloring this in was to add more of the purple in the center of the butterfly wings and at the bottoms of the flowers, and then to blend it out with the pink, and then go back with a little bit more purple to kind of bring that out. Then I went in with the green and the yellow green in order to add the leaves to the stems of the flowers. So now I've got my wire cutters here and I'm cutting apart all of my little dies from the coordinating die set. I will be using basically all of them except for one pig and then a little edger for the mud. And I'm going to just basically eyeball them, get them around my little images, stick them down with some low tack tape. In this case, I'm just using some washi tape. And I will have to run this through my die cutting machine twice because I do have some double images that I stamped here. And then once I'm done with that, I can pop all of those little die cut images out. And what I like to do is keep a little plate. So I have this little sectional plate, little bowls would work as well. And I just keep that to kind of organize all my little die cuts. So I'll just take out all of these little pieces. I'll keep the little flowers and butterflies in one area, the pigs in another, and the mud in another. And you can see these are all of the cute little cutouts that I get. Now for my background, I'm using a piece of cardstock which is 3 3/4 by 8 3/4. So this is going to end up going on a 9 by 4 inch card, a slimline card, and it's going to have a little bit of a border around it. And I'm using some oxide inks in order to add color to the background. I'm going to be using some Salty Ocean, some cracked pistachio, and some salvage patina. And I was just kind of showing you how this color works so nicely with the pinks, and that's the reason why I chose the blues, because it kind of just allows the little pigs to kind of stand out on the front of this card. So I decided to do my ink blending in a vertical fashion, and I started with the Salty Ocean on one edge. Once I'm done with the Salty Ocean, I think I've pulled it close enough to the center. I will use the cracked pistachio to fill in the center. And once I've done that, in order to get a nice blend from the Salty Ocean to the cracked pistachio, what I like to do is go back to the other brush with the Salty Ocean and kind of just go over that join between the two colors. And this helps blend the blue into the greener color. And then again, to blend it a little more, I will go back with the cracked pistachio, and then just going back and forth with your colors sometimes really helps you blend your colors really well. Like as it is, oxide inks, they tend to blend very well because they have that matte kind of chalky type blending to it. It's a little bit easier than the distress inks, so that's partly why I choose them. If you are more of a beginner, I do recommend trying the oxide inks first because it just gives you a boost of confidence, and then moving on to the distress inks, you'll feel like a pro at it by then. So we did the exact same thing with the salvage patina. I added it to the bottom, and then I went back and I blended the color in with the cracked pistachio. Now you can see it looks a little bit blotchy, but no problem there. It'll even out over time as it dries. Now I just took some water and spritzed it. I didn't actually spritz it directly. I added it to my hand and then sprinkled the droplets on top and took it off with a dry towel. Now moving on, I have the mini Slimline Essentials die set here by Pinkfresh Studio, and I'm actually just using 2 of the circle dies to cut out these 3 circles from some plain old vellum. And I'll put that to the side, ready for assembly. Next, I want to use the Pinkfresh Studio Stitch Scallop Rectangles. This is the Slimline rectangle, and it cuts out 2 borders. I cut it from white cardstock. I'm actually only going to use the outer border. Now I've gone ahead and added some strips of some foam here, some adhesive foam, and I'm just going to peel off the backing. Now, if you don't have small strips of foam, or you want to conserve that because they are a little bit more expensive to have on hand, all you needed to do was actually cut maybe 3 or 4 of these rectangles from white cardstock and then just stack them together, adhere them together with some inexpensive glue, and you would have got the same effect. So now that I've attached it to my background, I'm going to add the 3 vellum circles. Now these circles are vellum, you can see through them, so I'm only adding a small little dot of foam in areas where I know I'm going to put something down. So I'm lightly just attaching it to the card, and I'm doing it lightly because I have to kind of figure out where the center of the card is so that these are spaced out nicely. Now I'm just eyeballing it. I'm usually pretty good with eyeballing this. If you're not the type of person who is good at that, I would recommend measuring the center to place the center circle, and then the other 2 will just fit right in on the sides. Now I'm going to work on my sentiment, and I've got some black cardstock here. I've put some anti-static powder on there, and then I'm going to do some heat embossing with some VersaMark ink and some Gina K Designs fine detail white embossing powder. So I'm stamping out 2 of the sentiments. One is have a sticking a stinking great day. And then the other one is Go Hog Wild. So the second one will be my sub sentiment. And I'm just heating that with my heat tool to melt the embossing powder. And I actually did create this in black and white with the background or the cardstock being white and using black ink, but I actually felt that there was a lot of light colors going on my card. So using the darker cardstock here would create a bit more contrast and highlight these sentiments a little bit more on this card. So now I'm going ahead and assembling everything. Now, once I've kind of figured out where I'm putting stuff, I adding a bit more of those smaller foam squares just to give those pieces of vellum a little bit more structure and make sure that they're properly adhered onto the card and they're not going to kind of bend over when you put the card into an envelope or anything like that. And I have mentioned that this is going to end up going on a 9" by 4" slimline card. So this is a big slimline card, and I love doing big slimline cards because you can fit so much on it. As I mentioned, I'm only using 3 pigs. You probably could have fit 4 if I didn't use those vellum circles. And I just like having the extra space to just add more interest to your card. And this will always fit into a normal letter-sized envelope. So as I'm adding the little pigs here, I kept the 2 little mud puddles on the outer sides just to kind of balance out the card. And then I added that little rolling around pig in the bottom there, and he's kind of just jumping into some mud that you can't really see, and it's kind of just splashing up on top of him to create some movement without actually creating physical movement in the card. Now, all I have to do is kind of place all of these cute little butterflies and flowers just to kind of beautify this card a little bit. So the pigs, they pretty much stink enough, right? The card says have a stinking great day, and we got to kind of make it a little less stinky here. So we're putting the cute little butterflies on, and next we'll add some beautiful smelling flowers. And this just really makes the card look very pretty, and I love the fact that they included these little pieces in the set. Now I'm propping up all of the flowers for the most part with some more little foam squares, and all of the butterflies were just adhered flat to the card. So I have different levels of dimension on this card going on. There's the bottom layer with the butterflies and the background color. There's the second layer with those vellum circles, and then there's a third layer that's sticking out the most, which would be the little pigs and the little flowers. So I'm sticking one of those little flowers with the sentiment there just to kind of make it stand out a little bit. And then I've got the other little flowers just around the little mud puddles where the 2 other pigs are on the left and right side. So now that I've got the main panel assembled, I can attach it to my card base, which I mentioned before is 9" by 4" in size. And I'm using my Tombow Mono Dot Runner in order to adhere this. Now I made this panel, remember it was a 1/4 of an inch shorter on the top and the side in order to create a 1/8 of an inch border around the edge. So adding extra little borders like here really frames a card like this and brings your attention to the center of the card to look at all of those cute little elements that you put so much time and effort into coloring and cutting out. So I'm just making sure this is nice and flat and adhered, and then I'm going to do my final step, which is to add some bling. So I'm using some Peach Fuzz Pinkfresh Studio Jewels, and I chose this color because when it is on the blue background, it takes on more of a browner color and it looks a little bit more like the mud. So along with adding a bit of shine, it kind of doubles as a bit of mud kind of flying up in the air around the pigs, or at least I hope it does. So I'll stick all of those little jewels on in the background, and you can see it adds just that little bit of shine that this card needed. Then I'm going to take this Jelly Roll pen. This is a white pen, and I'm just basically going to create just a little lines along the curves and the corners of all of these little images. And all this does, it just adds a little bit of interest, and if you did use a lot of color, it adds a little bit of highlights to just kind of make your little images stand out and look a little bit more neat. Now here's my final card, and that's how it turned out, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. I love all the colors and how those beautiful pinks on those happy hogs stands out on the blue. So that's my inspiration for today. I hope you all liked the video. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. All the products used today are listed in the description below, and I hope that you all have a great day and see you again next time. Bye!